Good morning all of you. Continuing tradition and the individual talent from paragraph number 13. Actually I read the poem that day. Still once more I will read for you. And now methinks I could even chide myself for doting on her beauty. Though her death shall be revenged after no common action. Shall be revenged. See, please mark down the parts where I stress, the words that I stress, just for your understanding. Revenged after no common action. See, beauty, death, revenged. Does the silkworm expend her yellow labours for thee? For thee does she undo herself? Are lordships sold to maintain ladyships? For the poor benefit of a bewildering minute, bewildering. Why does yon fellow falsify highways and put his life between, that was already there, life between the judge's lips, to refine such a thing, keeps horse and men to beat their valors for her. See, we are not going to interpret this form at all in the context of learning this essay. Not at all needed. Because it's not actually to be read or interpreted, it is given. But the purpose is, actually that's what I mentioned, just to listen to the words that I stressed or repeated in while reading. And then let us go to Eliot's explanation on the same. Okay, of course it is a piece of poem. We do not know the writer, we do not know where it comes from or where it goes to, because it's not end or beginning it was given. There is no title as such. We do not know whether it is the beginning of a poem or if it is in the midst of it's a part of a poem. But it is a poetry. Anyway, it's a piece of poem. That's all what we can understand now. And of course we are not going to analyze this poem or the theme of the poem or anything. Okay. In this passage, but we are going to read Eliot's viewpoint on the same. In this passage, within bracket you can see, as is evident if it is taken in its context. It's unfamiliar, but in the context, there is a combination of positive and negative emotions. That is very obvious, right? That is obvious. That's why I emphasized depth, life, beauty, valor, bewildering. All those positive and negative terms are given in a mixture in the same poem or in the same stanza if you want to make it more specific. So, an intensely strong attraction towards beauty and equally intense fascination by the ugliness which is contrasted with it and which destroys it. You can see the description on beauty as well as or something entirely different like bewildering or death. See, all those negative emotions also are expressed in the same poem. This balance of contrasted emotion is in the dramatic situation to which the speech is pertinent, but that situation alone is inadequate to it. That is, the point is, actually Eliot is coming to the point where we stopped discussing. That is, the emotions actually do not have much to do with the emotions or the themes, the emotions or the themes of emotion that you come across in a poem may not have much to do with the poet. Or him as a person, it has much to do, but it may not have much to do with the poem also. So it's in turn. അങ്ങോട്ടും ഇങ്ങോട്ടും രണ്ടും. അതായത് പോയറ്റ് എന്ന് പറഞ്ഞ ഒരാള് അയാൾക്കൊരു മനുഷ്യൻ എന്ന രീതിയിൽ അയാളുടെ പോയട്രിയിലെ തീം വലിയ രീതിയിൽ എഫക്റ്റഡ് ആവണമെന്നില്ല. ഇൻ ദ സെയിം വേ the poetry talks about much greater themes or some other emotions, but അത് ആ പോയറ്റിനെ ഒരു അങ്ങനെ അങ്ങോട്ടും ഇങ്ങോട്ടായാലും രണ്ടും വലിയ രീതിയിൽ എന്താണ് എഫക്റ്റ് ചെയ്യണമെന്നില്ല എന്ന് ഓൾറെഡി നമ്മൾ എന്ത് ചെയ്യുന്നു, വി ഹാവ് ഓൾറെഡി ടോൾഡ് അബൌട്ട് ദാറ്റ്. So that to make that clear, actually he talks about this form where both contrasted emotions are discussed or come together, occur together. Okay, so this balance of contrasted emotion is in the dramatic situation to which the speech is pertinent, but that situation alone is inadequate to it. We do not know what, so we cannot understand what is the emotion of the poet while writing this. Whether he is happy, when you come across the terms like beauty, valor, labor, see, all this life, then you think that the poet is somewhere positive minded. See, his emotions are very positive. But in the same stanza you come across death, the bewilderment, so all those negative emotions as such. So we do not know. Can you predict from the poem that this poet is somewhere, what you say, he is in a very positive and positive vibe, he or she holds much better emotion. At the same point, along with the same positive term, you have very negative terms discussed as such here with the death or bewilderment, all those. So what is Eliot's point again? He again emphasizes that with an example. If you want to take this poem as an example, both mixtures are possible, so that poet may be happy, may not be happy. These emotions are coming together, combined together. So he cannot even predict whether he or she is happy or not. Okay. And this is, so to speak, the structural emotion provided by the drama. But the whole effect, the dominant tone, is due to the fact that a number of floating, let's take the last page, number of floating feelings having an affinity to the emotion by no means superficially evident. It is not superficially evident. The floating feelings, one's happy, one's sad, one's talking about one stanza talking about death, or one line you have reference about death, the next line you have reference about life, entirely contrasting themes. Right, so here it's floating feelings having an affinity to the emotion, by no means superficially evident. It is not superficially, not even at the surface, it is evident that whether you cannot say that, or you cannot emphasize that, he talks about death now, he is not at all in a very good mood. The next moment you see him talking about life. So superficially, no, even you cannot say that at times the poet's emotion, the personal emotion, has something to do with his or her work of art. Have combined with it to give us a new art emotion. It's something entirely new art emotion. Okay, so this is something entirely different. Actually, the poet may not have any emotional attachment for the themes that he or she discusses. While writing, he or she may or may not be emotionally attached. That is, we cannot always go back to that. So this is our in search of the biographical details, or trying to connect all the writings with the writer's personal emotion. That is not needed. That's what he says. That's why Eliot gave us the analogy of the elements combination in the presence of platinum. Only if platinum rod is there, that is the mind of the poet. Emotions and feelings are needed, and the medium, catalyst, poet's mind is needed there, but it doesn't have any change. So Eliot talks about it. First part, Eliot talks about the way we read, approach a writing, analysis, criticism, and the limitation we impose with our unlikely insistence upon individuality, and our tendency to resist the tradition. He is completely against that. Now he talks about the way of making, writing poetry, writing fiction or any creative work. So how it is in one way or other away from the poet as a person. Individuality, you have a tendency immediately to connect it with the individual emotion of a poet. He is very experienced. She is very experienced. He or she has a lot of experience, very positive or negative experiences in life. So that is the way their writings have this quality, that quality. There is a tendency as such to see so. And Eliot is completely against that formula. Okay? Yes. So that's all with that part. And the next 14th paragraph. Actually, it's a lengthy one. That's why I took this excuse to have more time, take more time. Paragraph number 14. Last but one paragraph. Last as a part, the third part as a conclusion you have in this essay. Otherwise, it is the whole essay comes to an end with this 14th paragraph itself. It is not in this personal emotion. Just wait. So paragraph number 14. It is not in his personal emotions, the emotions provoked by particular events in his life, that the poet is in any way remarkable or interesting. Again the same point. Personal emotions may or may not be there. Something intense or very silly may be there, may not be there. We do not have, or the writings even do not have much to do with that. His particular emotions may be simple or crude or flat. May be simple. The particular emotions of the poet as a person, as a human being, may be somewhere simple, somewhere more crude, that is intense, or somewhere taxing him, hurting him, or flat, or a neutral kind. Whatever. That is again possible. Just take one day of our life. Different kinds of emotions, different kinds of experience. Everything is possible. So with the same with the case of the poet also. The emotion in his poetry will be a very complex thing, but not with the complexity of the emotions of people who have very complex or unusual emotions in life. The emotions in his poetry will be very complex thing. Maybe poets are there who write very complex themes, but not with the complexity of the emotions of people who have very complex or unusual emotions in life. Even the person has intense emotions in his or her life. The intense emotions presented in his or her poetry may be something entirely different from that. Some people are there who have very difficult life, but their writings, their way of behaving, their way of presenting themselves may be somewhere very simple, silly, very free-minded, all those. That also is possible. Okay, so one error in fact of eccentricity in poetry is to seek for new human emotions to express. Eccentricity, Eliot calls it as an abnormality in the reading public or in the intellectual sectors as a whole, to seek new human emotions to express. That's what is the at most unlikely attitude Eliot finds out in the analytical sector, because it's new, something new. That is why you are against tradition, right? And so that is emotions to express. And in this search for novelty, what do you mean by novelty? Novelty. Novelty means something new. In the wrong place, it discovers the perverse. In the wrong place, you are searching for something new, so that you are turning your back or turning your side against the themes which are presented, which may be very important, which may be very appreciable, commendable, but you say that, oh, this is something already told heard and heard and heard. So you are not interested. Yeah, there is a new movie released. How is that? Oh, that theme, how many times we have come across, how many movies are all of the same kind. So this is our tendency, because we are in search of something new always. At least there must be maybe a way, there's a new novelty maybe there in the structural presentation or the way some characters are introduced. Their characters may be different. Their approach, their perspective may be different. Something new may be there, but we are not ready to look at, because we have the prejudice that that theme actually talks about this and this and this. We do not have to waste our time. So this is the mad chase behind novelty, something new. Okay, and he says it to be perverse. It's a kind of distorted or perverse kind of chasing. The business of the poet is not to find new emotions. We are all human beings. Maybe we belong to 21st century, some others belong to 16th, 17th, 18th. That is just about the difference in the time periods that we existed, or the national geographical differences may be there, racial, ethnic, many abstract differences, or abstract or concrete differences may be there. Still, we are all human beings. So to find something new, you should not have any emotion that I hold. You do not have the provision to say so. For all the vast body of literature, all these years, all the era, throughout the human history, how can you find out something entirely new every day after day? With every new novel, every new poetry, it's impossible. You can be novel, you can be new, you can be unique in the mode of its presentation. You can try something structurally different. We know with the advent of modernism, postmodernist writing, how the character presentation, even the narrative techniques have differed. All that is possible. Welcome. Of course, Eliot is a modern writer. You know the way he experimented with the style, fragmentation in his own poetry, The Wasteland. Okay, so that is possible, but new, something new, always you need something new. It's a mad chase. It's something eccentric. That's what he says. So that is not the business of the poet to find something new or find new emotions, but to use the ordinary ones and in working them up into poetry to express feelings which are not in actual emotions at all. Ordinary emotions. As a poet, Eliot says you find out something ordinary, very ordinary day-to-day life human emotions, and then what he or she is supposed to do? Express the feelings which are not in actual emotions at all. There is no need that it should be immediately connected with your life or your mind or your consciousness, or even the emotion of your acquaintances or the experience of your acquaintances. What do you mean acquaintances? The familiar persons you are in your contact. So this is the way Eliot talks about taking some ordinary experience. You are not supposed to invent. Invent means finding something new. It is not there or something very new. That is not the task of the poet. Okay. Emotions at all, yeah. And emotions which has never experienced will serve his turn as well as those familiar to him. Emotions, an emotion which he has never experienced also will serve his turn. That also will bring poetry in a creative genius. It doesn't mean it is not. That's I've already told you. It should not be your own personal emotion. Only that can be written in poetry. If you insist upon that, see all these vast number of writings may not be there. Familiar to him, yeah. Which has never experienced will serve him his turn as well as those familiar to him. Then consequently we must believe that emotions recollected in tranquility. What did you come across that? emotions recollected in tranquility, spontaneous overflow of powerful emotions. All those you have already come across. What did you come across that? Can anyone type in the text as a text the would like to get it from you? Who told about this? Waiting for your reply here. It should be there, at least as an interaction you can do that. Anyone? It is of course from an essay. Waiting for your reply. Yeah. Anyway, so Wordsworth, okay, from Preface to Lyrical Ballads. So, yeah, consequently, we must believe that emotions recollected in tranquility is an inexact formula. So, what is the take of Eliot on that formula? Is he supporting that? Not at all. So, what does he find something inconvenient with this formula? Let us see. Wordsworth told about a poet, a person having emotion, some kind of an experience, but on the spot he or she is not writing poetry. Later, in a very tranquil situation, when tranquil means calm and cool atmosphere, the emotions are recollected, and then the spontaneous overflow of those powerful emotions coming out as poetry. But Eliot is not ready to take that for granted. He says that it is an inexact formula. What is the reason? What's the reason? What must be the reason? Let us see. For it is neither emotion nor recollection, nor without distortion of meaning, tranquility. He says that there is no such a tranquility where emotions like recollection, just the poet is sitting with all the hope, without having any active state of mind, just recollecting. Even if it is in a dreamy, drowsy condition, recollecting, without even distorting the meaning. As per Wordsworth's point, just recollecting and giving it as such, the way it comes, not even thinking twice. And of course, Wordsworth is already criticized and pointed out by Coleridge, his own companion poet. We know the problems between those two. Not even because of the personal problem, but Coleridge makes the point already clear, even with quoting the example of Wordsworth's poems. എന്ന് പറയുന്നുണ്ട്. ഈ മനുഷ്യൻ പറഞ്ഞ ഈ പോയംസ് കണ്ടാൽ അറിയാലോ, വെറുതെ അങ്ങനെ ഇമോഷൻസ് ഇങ്ങനെ റീകലക്ട് ചെയ്ത് ട്രാൻക്വിലിറ്റി എന്ന് കൊണ്ടുവന്നെടുത്ത് ഇറ്റ്സ് വെരി വെൽ വർക്ക്ഡ് അപ്പോൺ പോയട്രി. ദാറ്റ് ഈസ് വെൽ ചോസൺ, വെൽ വർക്ക്ഡ് അപ്പോൺ, ഇന്റലക്ച്വൽ. ദാറ്റ് ഈസ് ദ ചാർജ് അഗെയിൻസ്റ്റ് Wordsworth. He says something but does something entirely different. He gives some formula, he gives some theory, he talks at great length in the preface about writing poem and all, but when he sits down to write down, his stance is entirely different. Practically he could never stick on to his formulas or theory. That's what's the charge already leveled against Wordsworth. So here Eliot also says the same. It's not about he may be talking about this recollection and tranquility, but there is nothing called recollection and tranquility, emotion, but without distortion of meaning. What do you mean by distortion of meaning? For distorting something, you have to take great pain. A person tells something, to distort that in the way he or she never meant, you have to take a kind of effort. Means in poetry Wordsworth talks about taking it directly the way it comes. No, his forms, the quality of his forms his forms does actually prove the same. His forms are very qualitative, not actually some scribblings from the mind taken without having any thought or any effort or anything. So that is again an inexact formula, for it is neither emotion nor recollection nor without distortion of meaning, tranquility. It is a concentration. See the term? Eliot talks about the kind of concentration. You have to take effort. It is a great pain and effort and labor the writer has to take. It's a concentration and a new thing resulting from the concentration. It doesn't come its own. It's a concentration, and with that effort, the new thing results as a new poetry comes into being of a very great number of experiences, which to the practical and active person would not seem to be experiences at all. A normal person may think, what kind of experience, what kind of emotion this man or woman is talking about. But that doesn't limit the quality, or that doesn't have any, that doesn't cause any problem to the quality of the poetry. That poetry may be very well appreciated, even though it is not immediate human emotions taken or given without any coloring or distortion. You have to distort, you have to combine, distort, combine or separate, whatever. You have to filter the emotions. You have to concentrate upon them. You have to ruminate. What do you mean by ruminating? Think and think and think. Taking effort itself. Okay, it's not as you recollect in a passive fashion, sitting under the tree, very tranquil atmosphere, not even a bird in sight. So that very tranquil and yesterday's emotions, just recollecting and writing down on the paper. Okay, that's not at all the appreciated formula as far as Eliot is concerned. And many others criticized Wordsworth for the inexact formula. Yeah. Active person would not seem to be experiences at all. It is a concentration which does not happen consciously or of deliberation. It's a concentration which does not happen consciously or of deliberation. That concentration, it's not even consciously. The concentration as a poet, that is your quality as a writer, the creative process. These experiences, deliberation or consciously or deliberation, both mean in that context actually the same. That is, you are taking effort deliberately, you are doing intentionally. Okay. These experiences are not recollected and they finally unite in an atmosphere which is tranquil only in that it is a passive attending upon the event. As per Wordsworth's point, you are just passively attending upon the event and your poetry is coming to you. But Eliot is not ready to accept that. Of course, this is not quite the whole story. There is a great deal in writing of poetry. Eliot says, Wordsworth talks about writing poetry, Coleridge talks about writing poetry. Now I talk about writing poetry. Eliot is talking about writing poetry, a creative process in general. All these may gloss over many other writing mode or many other approaches towards writing. So this is just about one or two of the great, this is not the whole story. Some 4 or 5 theoreticians or literary critics may not be able to sum it up. There is a great deal in writing of poetry, which must be conscious and deliberate. It should be very deliberate, very conscious effort you have to take. In fact, the bad poet is usually unconscious, where he ought to be conscious, and the conscious where he ought to be unconscious. There are times when you are supposed to be conscious and write poem. There you remain unconscious if you are a bad poet. There are situations that demand upon your unconscious status of writing, where you remain very static and very conscious. Then also you are a bad poet. Just think about Coleridge's writing Kubla Khan. We know the context of writing the poem. Definitely we can say if he was completely conscious, if he didn't eat opium, he didn't take opium, we couldn't have held such a piece of writing. We couldn't have possessed such a beautiful piece of writing. He says it to be a fragment because of the opium, effect of the opium. Now the poet is unconscious, and he remained unconscious because he is not a bad poet but a good one. Okay. Nowadays there are writing techniques. You will come across surrealism, and or when you have papers such as modern literature in the forthcoming semesters. Well, you have people who deliberately make themselves unconscious for the sake of creative process, to accelerate this creative process. That's entirely different area. Still, he says bad poets are ones. They remain conscious where they are supposed to be unconscious, and they remain unconscious where they are supposed to be conscious. So it's entirely the opposite mode of their existence, their being. Okay. Both errors tend to make him personal. Both errors tend to make him personal. So this is impersonation, impersonal theory of impersonality Eliot is talking about. So being very personal is not something desirable in the case of Eliot as a writer or as a critic. Poetry is not a turning loose of emotion, but an escape from emotion. We have already come across this escape from emotion in another literary critic. Not at all having anything or much in common with Eliot. Still, the very beginning we came across this in drama, criticism on drama by Aristotle. How pent-up emotions are somewhere pity and fear, and how our pent-up emotions are somewhere having an outlet because of the effect of the drama enacted upon stage. So poetry is not a turning loose of emotion but an escape from emotion. It is not the expression of personality but an escape from personality. Very important point. Please note it down. It is an escape from it is not the expression of personality. You should not try with all your efforts to express your own personality in that. No one is interested. You may think that I am very famous a poet, so let me express myself in my poems. Your own contemporaries may read you and identify, but later generations, poetry is for all the time, till the human race and literate, reading, writing, all those exist, writings are there, eternally there. So it is not very important. It's not important that you express your personality in it or not, in your writings or not. But this is about an escape from personality. That is again one of the important features of art. That you are trying to have an escape. It's an emotional outlet by writing, not just poetry. When you are very sad, some people are there who find out artistic, creative process as an outlet of their sorrows and feelings or problems. So that is another point of another phase of creativity. Here he talks about it's an escape from personality. But of course, only those who have personality and emotions know what it means to want to escape from these things. What is that? It doesn't mean, if you do not express your personality in poetry, that doesn't mean that you are not having a personality. You do not have a personality of your own. Only those who have personality and genuine emotions can know what it means to want to escape from these things. If you want to escape from something, you should have it first. So Eliot is not telling that you are not at all a good person or you do not have a person. So we attach this personality, we take as a very important part of our identity. Right? His personality is good. What a personality he or she is. Sometimes we have this. See, some comments come in that way. The personality is it's very important. Eliot doesn't say that you do not have a personality, you should not have a personality, only then you can be a poet. No, please don't take it in that negative sense. He says that poetry is ultimately about an escape from that personality which is already there in you. So you give a free outlet of your emotions. You write and you do not try to own it. You do not try to sign it or to make people read it in the way you want to. That is another problem when you assert, you always assert your own, only my reading only should be there. I meant it in this way, so you should read it in that way. No, we cannot insist that. How many people you will insist? You write a poem and publish. In a public platform you publish. And you mean something. Another person comes and asks you, why did you talk against such and such belief system? So the person might not have meant this, but the others feel that to be so. And you cannot say that you should not, it's my poem, you do not have the right to interpret it in that way. You do not have the provision to say so. Okay, so that is all with the way, that's the way Eliot says. You escape from the personality which is definitely in you. And there is a very clear, very pure logic, he says. Only if you have something, you can escape from it. You go and meet a doctor saying that I have much fear. I'm worried about darkness. So you need treatment, or you need a solution, you need a counseling. And only if a person who doesn't worry about darkness doesn't have to go to doctor for such a solution. Some people are worried about some centipede and all. Only if that fear is there in you, you have to escape from that fear. Okay, that's a very clear, very simple logic. It doesn't have much to do with poetry writing anything. It's simple, pure human logic. And that is, in one way or other, taken by Eliot to talk about, make his stance clear. In the mode of writing, in the mode of criticism, artistic process in general. Okay, so it's not about, Eliot doesn't say that you should not have personality, but you should have personality, and you are escaping from that by the creative, genuine emotional outlet you give out of your creative process. Or in your writing, you write something and you get an outlet for those emotions. Okay. Now, last part, third part of traditional individual talent. Let me continue. This essay proposes to halt at the frontier of metaphysics or mysticism and confine itself to such practical conclusions as can be applied by the responsible person interested in poetry. So the whole essay will have to metaphysics, mysticism. All these terms are very important, but I'm not going to explain it now. Metaphysics, it's beyond meta, it's beyond metaphysical. The poetry, the style of writing, everything, but I'll get you it as an assignment along with the last mentioned few words that came across, that we came across in the last session with some Orton Nightingale. All those I will tell you to collect details. Okay. This essay proposes to halt at the frontier of metaphysics or mysticism and confine itself to such practical conclusions as can be applied by the responsible persons interested in poetry. Only one thing. Metaphysics, it's something beyond our accessibility, physical existence of something. But to talk about something beyond our physical experience, like you can talk about a form. You know what it is. What about a meteor? What about a star? Even a star, we see, we talk about sun, but it's something beyond our touch, reach. Okay, so of course there is a mysticism involved in that. Mysticism, of course, that is actually as a theoretical school of theory, you have to go and collect details, but as such, what is a term as such, it is what it is. Mysticism, it's beyond our, it's something very difficult to understand, something mysterious, mysticism. That's metaphysics or mysticism. and confine itself to such practical conclusions as can be applied by the responsible person interested in poetry. You do not get a very simple solution for all the points discussed here. Eliot is very particular about making himself very difficult. So, you know, from Wasteland or Wasteland, you know how difficult he is to read his poetry. But he has written other poems. When you compare it with Wasteland, you will wonder whether it is from the same author of the Wasteland. So that is again different, but here this essay actually doesn't get you the whole solution writing, but this is definitely taking you to the frontier, the platform where if you are interested in poetry, you will get some points about poetry or writing poetry or whatever creative process it may be. To divert interest from the poet to the poetry is a laudable aim. Main aim is to take the interest from poet to poetry. The work of art is to be concentrated upon, to be taken care of, for it would conduce to a just estimation of actual poetry. It would conduce to a just estimation of actual poetry. What is actual poetry? The real exact poetry. No one can say so. No one can get such a definition. You just can claim. Of course, Coleridge claims in Biographia Literaria. There is a space allotted in his Biographia Literaria where he talks about what's the exact formula, exact form. But it's something beyond our capability. Okay, good or bad, poetry is just an estimation of actual poetry, good, bad. All these are, of course, under personal, subjective. Right. There are many people who appreciate the expression of sincere emotion in verse. Verse, V-E-R-S-E, verse, you know, stands for poetic composition. Expression of sincere. There are many people who appreciate the expression of sincere emotion in verse. And there is a smaller number of people who can appreciate technical excellence. Some people want very human emotions, genuine emotions in writings. Only then they are comfortable reading their writings. Some are the who really only appreciate the technical excellence. Even the fragmentation of Eliot. Normal or common readers are not at all comfortable reading the poem. All of a sudden, if you read Eliot's poem, The Wasteland, will not get nothing. You feel that the poet, either we are mad or the poet is mad. What nonsense this person has written. For whose sake he or she has written. See, some forms are like that. But the fragmentation, at the same time, simultaneously, it is thoroughly criticized by a group of people or a set of people, set of reading public. But at the same time, it is praised like anything for the same fragmentation. It's something technical excellence or something of a technical experimentation. If you want it, you can talk about it to be excellence, or if you do not want, you say it to be a technical experimentation. Still, in any case, that is purely the choice, the subjective preference of a reader to call it good or bad. You cannot always label a poem to be, or a novel to be, any piece of writing to be good, bad. It's up to you. The same way you talk about some films. Yeah, I liked it very much. The same, your own friends. If you're going to watch a movie, or if you're watching a movie, if you're watching a teleserial, television, any other programs, even a song, film song, some people appreciate it. Some people say that, what kind of national disaster. This is our human tendencies. You cannot always say that this is good, this is bad. And again, we are not supposed to. It's not our task or the task of any people, any reader. But very few know when there is an expression of significant emotion which has its life in the poem and not in the history of the poet. But very few know when there is an expression of significant emotion. Very few know. That means very few qualitative readers. People are readers are of different kinds. Some people just gloss over. Some people dwell on single passage, single stanza, single paragraph for more than 1 hour. Every word, every meaning you are in search of, and only then you leave the paragraph and go to the next, or the stanza and go to the next. That is again a kind of reading strategy, reading method. Even if you do not do that, there is a very minute, a significant emotion to be identified. A very few countable on fingers. Sometimes we talk about that, countable on with our fingers. Very few. So very few who know the significant emotion once that is there in the poetry. Not which has its life in the poem. Not at all in the poet. Okay, you are not in search of the biographical details of the poet to find it out. You find it out in the very poem itself, and you are capable of appreciating, and you are an appreciable reader. The emotion of art is impersonal. The emotion of art is impersonal, and the poet cannot reach this impersonality without surrendering himself wholly to the work to be done. What does he say? The emotion of art is impersonal. Please don't try to stick on to personal aspects whenever you read a writing, you read a poetry or any piece of writing. And the poet cannot reach this impersonality without surrendering himself wholly to the work to be done. Any writer is supposed to surrender himself, his personality, and to the work to be done. So he or she is devoting himself. The personality, it is not again you are making your personality at stake. It's not throwing away your personality, but you are devoting that personality for the work to be done. That means you are writing something entirely different from your own personal emotion. If you stick on saying that, I will not write anything that is beyond my experience or beyond what I experienced till date, then you may be a very creative person, but the creatives, the themes that occur in the emotions, the expressed emotions in your writings may be very narrow. You're not ready to take from anything else, anyone else, anywhere else. Then you are adamant in that case, and your space gets limited to your own very limited experiences. That's why Eliot talks about this impersonality, theory of impersonality. Definitely you can write about your experience, but about other experiences as well. And he is not likely to know what is to be done unless he lives in what is not merely the present, but the present moment of the past, unless he is conscious not of what is dead, but of what is already living. How the terminology, the expression for the dead in a very different way he presents here. It's not about what is already dead. They are already dead, and why should we waste our time to read them? Is it the stance he tells us to take? No. He tells about what is already living. And very excellent difference. Much difference is there. In its both are the same. Already living. That means with the death, their existence you cannot put an end to. Their writings are still living. So they are living through their writings. Eternal. Art has that kind of an eternal quality, an immortal quality of art you always talk about. That's why all these writers are still remembered. Is it because they are of our kith and kin that we remember all those writers from the Western, any other nations? Not even the nation names even we may not be familiar with, but we might have come across their names somewhere. Why? Because of the same reason. They are already living. Even after their physical death, they make their presence felt through their words which are existing. So he is not likely to know what is to be done unless he lives in what is not merely the present. It's not just about merely reading the works of the present, but the present moment of the past. Very important. Present moment of the past you have to take care of. So that is, unless he is conscious of this, that is the consciousness of the present moment of the past, and the idea or the awareness that these writers, the ancestors, are not just dead, but they are already living. They are already living. They never ceased to live afterwards, after their contribution to art. Okay, so that is the way Eliot ends this essay. Okay, actually as essay, it's the conclusion part. The third section is divided as given as a conclusion, where you can sum up this essay to be like this. He talks about tradition, individual talent, which are actually tradition. In the art of criticism we have a kind of stigma, disapproval for, but Eliot gives us a different point of view. He takes us back to another different viewpoint, perspective, where he gives the importance of being to have a sense of tradition. You are going to read the ancestors. They always assert their personality in different writings. So individual talent doesn't mean that throwing away all the traditional writings, what you can assume and acquire from them, but about having the sense of tradition, and later you are becoming matured. You are becoming highly talented. That's how you have to achieve this individual talent. The first part, it is about the criticism, the creative reading process, art criticism, and then he turns his interest upon, or the ideas upon, writing process. That is why he talks about the emotions, feelings, and the personality of the poet. He talks about the formula or the theory of impersonality. As a person, poet may be having different kinds of emotion, but the writings may have some other different kind of emotion, and you should not hold the tendency to mix it up together. That's why he gave the example of a poem which in the same stanza, the part of a poetry in which the same stanza talks about life, that all those contrasting features, feelings, or the aspects of life, like beauty, bewilderment, fear, worry, valor, all those mix it together. So you cannot say that a poet is happy so that he wrote a happy theme, wrote about something happy. So that's mix it. You cannot read it, and you are not supposed to go back to go in search of their biographical details in general, but just be upon the poem, read it and interpret in the way you know. So that's all with the tradition and individual talent, and with this we come to the closure of our all the prescribed lessons in this paper. Thank you so much.